The reason a bad boy is toxic is because even though he's connected to this cock energy, this drive, this masculinity, this I'm going to go, because no woman wants to be with a man who's mean, who's not including her and her feelings or other people's feelings in his bigger vision of what he's doing in the world or his actions and choices. The bigger picture, though, is that men are being asked to find the third option, and the third option is in their body. It's in their DNA. It's who they are as a man when they've taken it to that next level of integrity of like, this is really what it means to be authentically me.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Point podcast. I haven't done one of these in a while, so hopefully I'm not a bit rusty. But today we're here with Kate Cali. Is that how you pronounce it, or is it Cali?
Kate Cali. Kali is in the goddess of sexuality and destruction.
Kate is a hypnotherapist and a coach of, would you say, revolving around dating and specifically men, sort of male world of dating, or how would you describe yourself?
Yes, so I'm trained as a hypnotherapist. A lot of my work, at least in the public space online, is around men's dating, but it also goes a lot deeper than that. It's around what it means to be masculine, men's inner work, men's shadow work, men's mental and emotional health. A lot of times men find me because I will post content on dating, and I do have some courses available on dating and sex and relationships and attraction and all of that. But ultimately, what I live and breathe is shadow work.
Wow. Why does shadow work relate so closely to dating?
Because we have to kind of look at how the brain is structured. So we are acting upon about 5% what we think we are aware of, like the thoughts, the choices, the things we're doing every day, comes from about 5% of our brain. And so when someone's really wanting to make a big shift in their life, they really want to be more successful in dating, they want to really have that polarity dynamic in a relationship, get over an addiction. So it doesn't matter what it is that the person is wanting to change. If you really want to make a change, it's absolutely useless to talk about it, to work with the conscious part of our brain. We have to go into the subconscious. And the subconscious is what exists beneath the iceberg that is actually dictating your emotional triggers, your body language, your confidence, your actions, your decisions, your choices, all of that. And so and that's why I do shadow work and hypnotherapy, because if somebody comes to me with dating of like, hey, I keep getting friend zoned, I could tell them all day long, here's how to have confident body language, here's how to read red flags better. But ultimately, if they're not changing the actual physical structure of their subconscious, nothing is actually going to change.
Could you explain to people what you mean by shadow work? So obviously, but shadow is a Jungian term from the legend that was Carl Jung. Could you sort of like delve into what the shadow means?
So shadow work is essentially what is existing that is unknown to a person in the subconscious. And so, what we don't realize is that everybody wears a mask. It's because we're a tribal species. We are designed and basically hardwired to interact with other humans. So we need this mask, we need this ego kind of personality. But the shadow is what exists behind the mask. So the shadow is what somebody's real desires, what somebody's real intentions. And usually the shadow is where self-sabotage comes from. It's what is unknown about that person that's actually dictating the actions and choices of the mask. And so shadow work is sort of taking a peek behind the curtain of like, oh, what's going on behind the scenes in my nervous system? What's going on behind the scenes of how I'm hardwired, and how can I retrieve that part of me and make it whole so that who I present to the world is more authentic and aligned to who I truly am. And ultimately, when we do the shadow work, when we reclaim these lost aspects of ourselves, these boundaries we have, needs, desires, all kinds of things, when we retrieve that and we bring it back into the breath and the life and the walk and the choices that we make of who we are, then our life just becomes a lot better because we're not managing a bunch of shadowy information.
Wow. That sounds like quite a difficult task. I can see why you would need a methodology like hypnotherapy to tackle that, because you're going to have to go through layers of subconscious and stuff like that. And work out all sorts of things. Could that be why? Because obviously, shadow is also more potentially stereotypically, when people mention the shadow, they often talk about the dark aspects of human psychology. And in the context of dating and men, could that be why? Could that be where, like, the idea of the stereotype of the nice guy, bad boy phenomenon sort of crops up because there's a lack of, like, Jung would talk about the integration of the shadow into the full psyche, so that it's no longer just like, I don't know how you describe it, like a big chasm that sits at the bottom. Have you seen that, like, photo, that image, the Jungian image with all the different sort of Jungian archetypes in like a circle, and it's like the anima sits here, the shadow is inside the anima or something. I'm really interested in anima and animus. I think Jung is phenomenal. If I was gonna, I need to read some more Jung. Anyway, that was all over the place. But do you think that is sort of linked with the whole, one final little tangent? I had another dating coach on, and she was saying the reason that women stereotypically like the bad boys because they possess qualities that women feel they had, which is sort of apathy, ambivalence, and that sort of is kind of like a soft shadow, like a soft shadow asset, I suppose. Maybe a dark shadow asset would be sort of psychopathic almost, but a soft shadow aspect would be secure and confident and assertive. So is there something going on there with shadow work, bad boy, nice guy? Because when you were talking, it sounded like they sort of marry up.
Yes, absolutely. I love all the tangents, and I also love Carl Jung as well. And so, yes, we can talk about it in terms of the bad boy archetype definitely has a particular shadow that is actually opposite of the nice guy archetype, which has another particular shadow. And ultimately, and we'll kind of parcel it out, but biologically, for a feminine being, and this is her shadow. This is what she's not aware of, but literally biologically, she is going to every single time choose the bad boy over the nice guy if those are the only two choices that she has.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's because biologically, the bad boy feels safer. And I know that sounds a little bit illogical, but it's a primal safety. So often what happens with the bad boy is he is connected to what I call his cock energy. Like his energy, he hasn't disassociated from the biological function of what it means to be a man. He is fully inhabited, usually in that lower region of his body, at least somatically. Somatically just means mind body connection. The reason a bad boy is toxic is because even though he's connected to this cock energy, this drive, this masculinity, this I'm going to go out into the world. I don't care who the fuck gets in my way. I'm going to go hunt. I'm going to kill. I'm going to bring back food because we're all tribal species. Obviously, that's not logistically what's happening, but that is very attractive to a woman. It gives her the sensation of I can relax and be feminine. And that is such a yummy space for a woman to be in. Now, the opposite happens with a nice guy. A nice guy, I'm sorry, I don't know if I completed that thought. The bad boy archetype, the reason he's toxic is he's not connected to his heart. So there's usually in the past, and this is where the shadow work comes in, he has disconnected to that integrity piece, that empathy piece, that heart piece, that love piece, that ability for a man or really for anybody to know with absolute certainty that everything is connected. And so what I do out in the world for another person intimately affects me and vice versa. Everything is always connected. Nervous systems are connected. Everything in nature is connected. So when a bad boy leaves out his heart, but he's rooted in this masculine cock energy, a woman will be more attracted to that because for a nice guy, he has been disassociated to varying degrees from that cock energy. He has been disassociated, and this is the shadow work that Jung talks about. He's been disassociated from that primal masculinity, that drive of like, I don't care who tells me what the fuck to do or not the fuck to do. I'm going to go out into the world and be my full authentic masculine self. And so for a nice guy, because he's repressed that part of himself, he maybe hasn't disconnected from his heart, but maybe even then he exists in his head. He exists in his head thinking, I know I kind of somewhere have this need to feel this certain way, but I can't get it met. I have this need to go out into the world to feel really masculine, to date or this or that or whatever his authentic masculine need is. But since I'm not connected intimately to that need inside of me because of past traumas, generational shit, honestly, like feminism movements, and I'm all about females, right? But there's a lot of societal factors that have kind of created this type of man that is
Absolutely.
disconnected from that energy. Yeah, he goes up into his head and starts managing it. He starts being like, who do I need to be in order to get my needs met? And that's ultimately a taking energy that is not masculine. Masculine energy is giving, right? If we look at it biology, he is giving semen through something that becomes erect out into the world, right? Like we have to kind of parcel it down to the biology. There's a polarity reversal and it lands in the woman for a nice guy as like, this feels off. This feels icky. I don't feel safe. It feels almost like a squirmy feeling if I were to just explain it in my body, how it feels when I'm around a man that is operating from nice guy energy, it it's like, it just doesn't feel quite right.
I think this was one of the things I was going to ask. We need to sort of clarify what the term actually nice guy means, because I think in recent years we've seen an aberration, like a a shift in what it actually means, because it used to mean, and as far as I'm concerned, someone who was falsely kind as a way of as a way of seeking maybe validation, but probably not validation, more like access to a woman, and that was what they were being kind as a way of falsifying who they were, and they believed that would get them what they wanted, or a part of them wanted, so to speak. But now I think the term nice guy applies to people, just to men who genuinely are kind. And I think we reached a point now where, especially young men with young women, if you are just genuinely kind, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage, which I think is really wrong and worrying, actually, and shows how far as a society we've sort of regressed. I don't want to use the word fallen, but I do want to use the word regressed. And maybe it's got something to do with that safety thing, in that it's hard to tell if someone's being genuinely kind or not. So the best option is to just view all kindness shown to me in the exact same way, to eradicate the potential of being wrong. But then the problem is if you are a man and you're cantankerous and you go out into the world and you do whatever you want, you're going to piss off a lot of people. And if you piss off a lot, to some degree, if you piss off a lot of people, no one will be there for you. And if you're a woman and you're with a man who is like this, going out doing that, but if everyone hates him, you are almost better off being with someone who everyone likes, but isn't going. Do you understand what I mean? It is a flawed logic to some degree, when if you look at it from a practical point of view of, he is a go-getter, he has drive, he has ambition, but he's a complete asshole and everyone hates him and he doesn't get anywhere because people will ostracize him. So it's a messy, women are constantly balancing between the two, and trying to find that match is quite difficult. Do you understand what I mean about how the one extreme absolutely
Absolutely.
is practical? Either extreme is, neither's ideal.
Yes, and I'm so glad that we're bringing, or that rather you're bringing this up, because I do know exactly what you mean. And I think that's a lot of the struggle. Honestly, the struggle's on both sides. It's not just men, it's not just women. I firmly believe that like consciousness of masculinity has a lot to do and consciousness of femininity has a lot to do. I just happen to work with men. But I do think that that's part of the struggle that men are existing in, is like, well, does it have to be one or the other? And I really do wish, I've talked about this on another podcast. I really do wish that there was another word for nice guy, like Dr.
Yes.
Robert Glover. I'm sure you've read the book, like No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's such a great book. And it has popularized this phrase called nice guy syndrome. And if you're not looking at the nuance that you're bringing up, it can be very misconstrued without the surrounding context, because no woman wants to be with a man who's mean, who's not including her and her feelings or other people's feelings in his bigger vision of what he's doing in the world or his actions and choices. So what I always like to say is that niceness is not the problem. Niceness is it's not that at all. It's not that flavor at all. Kindness, I mean, gosh, the world could use more kindness. It's just when the niceness, quote unquote, comes from a shadowy place of manipulation, when the niceness comes from a shadowy place of I'm giving to get, covert contracts. Dr. Robert Glovert talks a lot about those covert contracts
And
rather than being kind and direct, really knowing oneself. And so there's a very there's a very binary concept happening in the world right now where it's like, well, are you going to be toxic, alpha, bro, this, that, whatever? We could put all the words around it. Or are you going to be a nice guy? And I often tend to think, and I'm going to get a little existential here, that because we are humans, we are different than animals in the wild, meaning we have a prefrontal cortex, we have this ability to create, right? Like I could sit down and I could paint, I could create poetry, I could create something that has never existed before with this creative faculty. I also have the ability to place meaning on things. I can say, wow, today's been the best day because, and that part of my brain will fill in the blank. I could sit here in the same breath and say, this has been the worst day because, and if I plop that into this prefrontal cortex, my human brain will generate a response same day, but I could come up with answers for both. So just to kind of parcel out, that's what differentiates us from animals in the wild. We have the ability to come up with a third option. And I really firmly believe that that's what's being asked of men right now. It's why I work with so many men. I firmly believe in this so much that men have existed on the spectrum. I think men have it really rough right now. I think there's so much covert depression in men going on right now. I think men are confused. And I think they've gotten a lot of messages from women that are inaccurate, or at least not fully speaking what the truth of what is going on. Because, like you said, they're in this dichotomy of like, what the fuck what am I supposed to do? You want me to be this and this, but those are two polar opposites. You want me to communicate my feelings, but then you dump me. You want me to be kind, but then you don't like me. Like there's so many hard challenges that exist on that spectrum. But going back to the function of our brain, this very human function of our brain is, you can imagine a triangle. There's a third option. We don't have to, because we are human, we don't have to exist on that spectrum. There's a depth that masculinity consciousness is coming into, and I believe it's up to each masculine individual to really dive into who really are they. It's not about doing this, doing that, having this confident body language, saying this on a date. Like, and I can talk about all of that as well, because I do think there's a time and a place for that, and I'm happy to talk about it. The bigger picture, though, is that men are being asked to find the third option, and the third option is in their body. It's in their DNA. It's who they are as a man when they've taken it to that next level of integrity of like, this is really what it means to be authentically me. And it's like a birthing process of just something that exists outside of this weird dichotomy of messages that men have been given. And ultimately, that's going to be attractive to women, healthy women, healthy women.
healthy women, yeah. Well, healthy women, yeah. We can get into that. I think
Yeah.
fantasy is a key aspect in this whole thing. Like Carl Jung spoke about fantasy, and I don't mean fantasy in like the film genre of fantasy, or even fantasy of fantasizing about someone. I just mean the concept, the acknowledgement that there is a world, there is a not rational, what's the word? There is a literal world, and then a metaphorical / fantastical world. And in dating, they are exceptionally key. And I think because of a woman's ability now to have more, I'm not going to say the word equality because I hate the word, but to have similar access in certain ways as men did, their fantasy of when you read or learn about female romance novels, they're basically all the same. And it's basically about a man who is very, very powerful, has a lot of control, a lot of power, a lot of wealth. Not even wealth. It is basically just power, really. Wealth is a form of power, so therefore wealth comes under it. And what happens is the logic, if we could be truly egalitarian and balanced, we would bring women up on the power hierarchy to men, and then they would switch and go, okay, I'm going to look down now at men because I'm up here, so I can look down. But what it's done is it's just brought them up and then it's brought their threshold of someone they find interesting up even higher. And that is what causes I mean, I've spoken to dating coaches, and one was like a dating coach for really successful women, like specifically, and she basically said 90% of her clients can't find someone to date because everyone that they want to date is just like one in all the men that they're looking for are one in 100,000 or whatever, with regards to wealth and career success, and they're not going to commit. And I'm not saying anything new here. It's a everyone's talking about it at the moment. It's become a bit cliche, but it's still relevant. So the fantasy has been shifted now, and if you were to look back in the past, and the it's so hard to say these things without like being like because I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just exploring ideas.
Totally.
If a woman has no education and has no source of income, a powerful man doesn't have to be someone who's earning X amount and treats them. Because another thing is, going back to the power, if you treat someone poorly, this is why women fall for men that stereotypically treat them poorly, but then also treat them well. I guess the whole love bombing phenomenon. You are elevating yourself up above them, which is a very manipulative way of doing it. And it's, flawed, and it only works not works. It's not, it's bad. But anyway, you know what I mean? If you elevate yourself
Mhm.
above them, you're creating a power dynamic. And the power dynamic, the fantasy, has sort of grown into like a monstrosity almost now. And women are looking for men who satiate that desire in the wrong places, or that's where the whole toxic masculinity comes from. Because I think like toxic masculinity is kind of like hyper masculinity, or it's non-integrated masculinity into the heart. Like, I've never heard you spoke at the beginning this idea of the heart and empathy. I'm quite interested in that. It's all cock energy, but that's what masculinity is. It's for based on just what you were saying and what I was thinking. It's the integration of maybe those two polarities together to create genuine masculinity. So, to put a question out of my little tirade that I went on, do you understand what I mean about fantasy and how that has become a potential stumbling block for many women now because of modernity and social media as well? Do you get that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's a huge problem, and it keeps spiraling in that direction to the point where it's like that ship sailed and it's not coming back. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure what even the next steps are.
Yeah. What do you think the next steps are? If you had to guess, just improve yourself, isn't it? The answer,
What's
what do you think the next steps are? If you had to guess.
I think the next steps are, I keep coming back to it, but it's the personal work that you do on yourself to become what I like to call just authentic. To really look inside of yourself and just if you can be who you truly are, not who you think you are, not who you want others to perceive you as, but to look at both the discomfort and the comfort inside of you, because that's what shadow work is, and become more of an integrated whole within yourself. That speaks volumes for every single person that you're around, whether or not you're talking about it, because nervous systems are always talking to each other. This is like the hypnotherapy brain part of me. I'm always thinking about like nervous systems, but nervous systems are always talking to each other. So if I'm doing shadow work, if I'm reclaiming parts of myself and I am coming forth into the world as more so of a whole being than I was yesterday, then that's like a permission slip for others to also step into that work. I firmly believe, to kind of answer your question in a little bit of a different way, there's always order in nature, right? Like you look out, whatever, at mountains, at trees, like yeah, there's chaos, but everything is in order. It's not like there's grass growing and someone steps on the grass and the grass is like, what the fuck? You just stepped on me. And they get mad and they start harboring resentment towards humans and they're plotting against human. Like that's all very human stuff. So returning for each individual to turn to the authenticity in their body, and the body is not just the cock energy. The body is everything. The body is the subconscious. The body is where the emotions exist. And we're returning to that and doing our own personal work. And every day getting 1% better, or whatever that saying is, just a little bit better, like really sovereignly just becoming the light of who we are truly are, who we're meant to be. I think that's the only solution personally, because I think that's the biggest way to make a change. But
Yeah.
that's, if I had to guess, that's what I would say. But curious what you think too, because